Hey, 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 what's up, guys? It's the Ace Michael Show. Welcome to it. Glad to have you back. Always a pleasure to have you on the show, watching and sharing, liking, supporting. I want to thank you for that. We need that. We need that love. You're sharing the show. That means that you apparently like what we're doing, and we'll keep doing what you like as long as you like what we're doing. And that's what's up. If you ever want to be on the show, all you have to do is just send us a message and say, hey, I want to be on your show, man. And then we will put you on the show. And then that way you can voice your opinion, speak your mind, say what's on your heart. You know what I mean, homie? You know, that's what's up.
Absolutely.
Today, my guest is a returner. She's a returner. Welcome back to the show, Lorraine Sol.
Thank you for having me once again. Always a pleasure. Always so much fun.
Lorraine Sol. That's what's up. And Lorraine, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world today. I can't even say it's all turmoil. I wish I could say there's a lot of turmoil. It's not necessarily all turmoil. A lot of it is actually some deep healing that's happening in our country. I think that it's kind of like if you've been in a relationship where somebody was an abuser or somebody was a cheater, and now you're saying, listen, you're going to have to get out of the house still, but before you go, why don't we at least have some closure on some of these things that I thought were going on, but you never really said they were going on, but what's really going on? I kind of feel like that's where we're at with America right now, is that we know that there's no cure for racism. There's no ethnic cleansing that's going to happen because we're always going to be different. We're always going to have that feeling like, oh, a Mexican. Or a Mexican. Anyway, well, that's always going to be part of who we are. There's no two ways about that. But how we deal with that needs to change, So anyway, welcome on the show today. One of the things I want to bring people up to speed on is you and your backstory because, again, presuming they don't know. So I'll give you the floor. Tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. So a lot of the discussion that I've been having just recently, not even on a professional level, but just on a regular social level, this huge kind of picking of sides when it comes to what is happening in the world right now. So hopefully a lot of our viewers are Black Lives Matter supporters. We love the Black Lives Matter movement. And so some of the things that I wanted to talk about today having to do with that is just kind of being able to kind of come together like in a unified way where we can all understand that we have a common goal. Mm-hmm. So the reason why I think that this is important to address in general is because we see very often, because negative news does sell. The 10% of the extremists on any end of what's going on in the world, and people are presenting that and making it very difficult to see the true nature of a lot of the movements and a lot of the intentions and stuff that we're sharing with each other and that are going around as we try and work through this very heavy and controversial moment in history. Black Lives Matter is officially the biggest movement in world history, I think, ever. I think that just came out, which I thought was absolutely wonderful. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the internal discriminations and how we're hurting ourselves within our communities as we continue to separate from each other.
And just real quick, I wanted to say that you could actually start your own movement with some of your brothers and sisters called Creamy Lives Matter. Because like creamy lives got to matter too. Like you're not quite black. You're not quite, what I'm saying? I'm just throwing out there. Creamy Lives Matter, not to be committed. UK and Texas. Okay, we got it.
Yeah.
Legal. Yeah.
So being someone of like super diverse, like mixed race is really kind of complicated, like how you choose to have your relationship with race, because you want to, for a very long time, for example, so my mother, who's actually the immigrant of my parents, she came from Italy. And so that would be like my Caucasian side, but she still experienced discrimination being, having that heavy Italian accent, and stuff like that. And, the dirty Italians and their dirty lies and their dirty lifestyle, that's also a thing.
And their excellent pasta.
Yeah, they're excellent pasta
There you
too.
go. We
Excellent
love their
pasta.
pasta. We just don't love where it comes from. Right.
And then on my father's side, who technically he wouldn't be an immigrant because Puerto Rico is a
Yeah.
United States territory, but his parents actually came from the Dominican Republic, which is even, you know, people more prominently associate Dominicans with African blood.
Right.
Um, so my relationship with race is very complicated because for a long time I was feeling pressure from the I want to say community of color more so, because I felt like I needed to separate myself from my mom because I was taught for a very long time to be ashamed
Mm-hmm.
of where my mom came from, even though she is, I mean, I would be the first generation on her side of the family to even be born in the States,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so,
And did people give you a thing like you're not quote unquote black enough?
I've gotten that too. And that is kind of strange too, because I have so many, it's different every time I ask someone who's African American, do you consider Dominican people to be Black people? Half of the time they say yes. And they say that, you know, there's that responsibility there to obviously voice, you know, your connection and your ancestral blood to, well, in my bloodline specifically would be Nigerian.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I've also had a lot of people say, no, you're not Black. You have no right to say that you have anything to do with us, that you understand that what we've went through and things like that. And so it's hard all around to really claim whatever relationship you have with your race because it's defined by everyone else.
Yeah, and just to throw this in there, not to make it even more complicated, monkey wrench, because it definitely is a complicated monkey wrench. But and nobody really talks about how the Southerners were always, at least American Southerners, we're talking about, they were always pissed off at the Northern states because they were ostracized by the Northern states. They were like, look, oh, you live where? Down
Right.
south? No, 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 no. You're not American. You're one of those backwoodsy blah blah blah. And it was like that was the whole struggle, was that they were trying to say, well, no, no, no. Redneck lives matter too. And for years they were fighting that struggle, that and they were the same skin color, but because of their geographical differences and other things, it was a huge, they're cousins even, and they're just not getting along because you live down there in Louisiana and we live up here in upstate New York. So
Right. And I think it's important to acknowledge at this time now, too, that discrimination and prejudice and racism is a human issue. It has very little to do with the color of your skin because I mean, just in my personal, I may have brought this up in another interview, but in my personal experience, the Dominican Republic shares an island with Haiti. And there are a lot of Dominican people who are super racist against Haitians and
Haitians,
Black
yeah,
people in general
yeah,
because they're
yeah.
like, we're Hispanic and they're Black. And that's the difference, and that's the racism and prejudice is a human problem. It has so little to do with the color of your skin.
Right.
So I think that to acknowledge that is a huge step for a lot of people. And sometimes they don't really even see those other issues because we're so focused on the Black and white that we miss out on so many other discriminations of all kinds too. And
Mm.
then the in-between factor, the mixed kids, not even, I mean, some, people can say that I'm Black or not. That's, I guess, a matter of personal opinion. But friends who I've had who are 50% African American, 50%, Caucasian American, um, they all the time are seen as different. Or, I had this friend in high school, she was light skinned with blonde textured hair, dirty blonde, but it was natural. And she had these bright green eyes. And people still kind of treated her like completely differently
Mhm.
because she had these other, Caucasian-esque features. You know what I mean? And so it doesn't even stop at me. This happens to, mixed children of all kinds, you know?
Now, my
So,
experience has been that you get kind of homogenized if you have more Caucasian features, and in the modeling industry, especially, you're considered prettier than a girl who has African American features. Now that, that's an arguable topic because there are some girls with African American features who book more jobs than Caucasian looking models. But my experience is for a long time is that if you had the more Caucasian features, then you were considered beautiful. You had the great features, great chin line, great nose, all of the things, straight hair, great, and they come up with a way to say it like, oh, she's got, nice, whatever they would say. I don't say it, so I don't know. But I know they say kinky hair wasn't for a long time. Kinky hair wasn't supposed to be as attractive as long, straight hair.
yeah.
Now, is there an opposite to that I don't know of? Is there a time when the black featured model is more in demand than the Caucasian featured model?
So in my personal experience, because most of my work is really in Detroit and Chicago,
Mhm.
they're looking for mixed girl features. You know what I mean? And it's kind of a shame because I wish that people would celebrate like their natural qualities instead of sticking, to like a more Aryan, I guess, aesthetic, because I like for my hair actually is not this texture. My hair is super, super curly. And for so long, I was made to think that my curls, which were really like my most notable feature, that they were like inconvenient. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? So,
Sure.
oh, your hair takes so long. Oh my God, your hair is so difficult. Oh my God, your hair is so big. Like I have huge, naturally curly hair.
Mhm.
And I killed it because I was shamed so much for that. And now that my hair is dead, people are like, oh, where are your curls? I miss them. Where did they go? What happened? And so it's just, there are certain things that, maybe people will look for, whether you're, lighter or darker or have, wider features or smaller features. But um on a personal level, with what I experienced, destroying an aspect of myself for this aesthetic, it's never worth it to compare yourself in the industry and wish that you had something different, because people look for your uniqueness.
Mm.
And the higher you get, obviously that's different. People are very superficial the higher up you get, but that's why I kind of stay level. I'll
Right.
just kind
Right.
of stay in my own group and ride my own frequency and let everyone else who wants to go somewhere else do their thing, because those people in the industry, I don't have room for them. And a lot of people who are experiencing discrimination, like the one that you just brought up, they shouldn't let that go, because someone is looking for what you got. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you should never stop looking for it.
And that may be truer now, but I'm a what's technically referred to as an old ass grown ass man. So, in my youth, there literally were two black magazines, Ebony and Jet. That was it. That was it. So you weren't going to see a black woman on the cover of Rolling Stone or Bazaar or Glamour, Elle, Vogue. None of that, homie. That was not happening. So we
Right.
knew that, though. We knew that those magazines weren't for us. We knew that certain film roles weren't for us. I mean, there was a time that the most acclaimed black actor could only play a pimp or a drug dealer. And
Right.
we were happy if he got a role in a movie as a pimp or a drug dealer. But now there's so much more diverse. As a matter of fact, I think, don't quote me on this because I'm not a film historian, but I think Denzel Washington was the first breakthrough black actor with a role playing a doctor on Saint Elsewhere, I think was the show that he was on. But I think that was the first breakout role for a major black actor to be playing a role where he wasn't a criminal. And
Yeah.
that's what I think. Don't quote me on that, but I think that was the deal. And so it says a lot when you go to the magazine stand and all you see are people that aren't you on the
Right.
covers. Whereas now you see people of all ethnics, all race, everybody's represented. And I
Right.
think I said this on a different occasion. We were talking about the race riots and stuff, and I said, it's really interesting because you see a lot of white people out there with black people, and it's going to be real hard to separate people on this side and say, well, this is for the whites and this is for the blacks, which was a very real reality in the 60s. White fountain, black fountain. You never go to the white fountain, you never go to the black fountain. But I don't think anything like that would ever work anymore. At the time, I attributed it to the music. I said, well, because so many kids, I call it today, kids listen to hip hop music. There's no way you're going to tell them that the artists that they've grown up loving are wrong because they're black. There's just no way. I mean, you know how many hours I've spent with Kanye? Like, you're going to tell me Kanye is wrong? Nonsense. I listen to Kanye more than I read the Bible, whatever. But I think it's bigger than that. I think it's a bigger cultural shift. I think it's the fact that, there are kids like you who, if I was a racist grandfather, it'd be very hard to hold my stance when my granddaughter is mixed with so many different things. Well, how are you going to hate your granddaughter?
Right.
And I think that's the true conflict we're going through now. I think that's why you see so many people are angry because they're conflicted. They're like, well, Black Lives Matter. Well, purple lives matter too. What are you talking about? There are no purple lives, dog. We talking about black lives, and essentially where it comes to black people getting killed by the police. That's what we're talking about. We're not trying to say their whole life is better than your life or their whole life is more valuable than your life. All we're saying is that we had to have something that tied it up into a one simple slogan, and we couldn't say, what it is. We gotta say this is what it is. Black Lives Matter. It's that simple,
right.
And that gets the point across,
Yeah, and for as far as that goes, I think that people kind of miss the point. Like of course, all lives matter, but the response "all lives matter" is not an appropriate response when we're talking about Black Lives Matter. It's just not, because you're missing the picture. You know what I mean? And I feel like some people should stop taking that so personal. You know what I mean? It's really not about you.
Right.
You will have your moment. I'm sure maybe you had your moment, already in life where you experienced something where you're like, my life matters too. But, the fact of the matter is that discrimination is real. I mean, I've experienced it myself,
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. Well, and two things I want to mention. So one is, can you imagine a hospital where they say, the number one cause of death is cardiac arrest, and then the next doctor goes, no, the number one cause of death is spinal spindifida. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, it doesn't matter. We all are important. We all have a purpose here. Don't make it that your specialism is bigger than my specialism. And that's what that seems to say when people say, all lives matter. It's like, right, dog, we know that. But why are you trying to diffuse the fact that right now we're focusing on these particular ones?
Right.
What's been interesting to me is how many people don't say all lives matter, but they start to justify things. Like they go, well, okay, this policeman killed this young black boy, but how many white boys got killed by police this year? That's not even in the news. That's not even, well, it was in the news somewhere. And the thing is, the difference is that when a white cop kills a black kid, then it is news because this white police officer typically is going to get off, and that's going to be the end of the story, and the family still has to deal with all of the grief. When a white kid gets killed in Beverly Hills or Malibu, the family has an attorney. They raise lawsuits, the whole 9 yards happens, and they usually get some type of compensation. So that was the one thing I was going to say. The other thing I was going to say had to do with your point on when we talk about discrimination, we have to realize that discrimination is a choice.
Yes.
You don't have to discriminate, but you choose to based on, I think, probably fear that this individual is different than me. So let me get this straight. There's a girl that's coming to work that's Dominican. Well, I don't like Dominicans. and I got to sit by her. Well, this isn't going to work at all. Like, who set this up? And all of a sudden, you have all these issues that are like, dude, what's the
Yeah,
problem?
like, and like how little that actually has to do with like, you know, if that happened to be me, how little that actually has to do with me. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like one of my favorite things is you know, someone else's opinion of me is none of my business. And
Right.
so I, you know, I feel like people are very distracted and they choose to be when it comes to discrimination specifically because you know how many people just want to mind their own business and go about their day and not like even, you know, she said something about me being, you know, Hispanic, like, all right, well, we just gonna move around, you know what I mean? So, but it's just, it's a, to me, it's a huge waste of time and like kind of an excuse not to just like do what you're doing. That person over there is darker than me. I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to do my work. I didn't realize that being around brown people was like a disability for you. It's like
Right.
your
Exactly.
kryptonite. Like colored people can't do it.
Now,
But
do you ever get taken aback when you, let's say you meet someone and then they take you to their home and you find out that their spouse is white, or they're, you didn't expect that they got down like that, and you're like, oh, does that ever happen? That happens to me. I'm gonna keep it real. I
yeah,
I have a wonderful client, black lady. I didn't know her husband was white, and when I met her husband, I was kind of like, I had all kinds of thoughts in my head about, oh, he must be the sugar daddy, or oh, he must be. Why would they be together if there's not a reason? Well, the reason is they love each other. That's the reason. That's the
right.
reason.
And
They
like,
want to be together, and that's it. You
yeah,
know.
people, I feel like that harmony is confusing to people who have not experienced harmony like that in their lives or have been taught that that isn't really like a realistic expectation for relationships that have to do with race, you know, interracial couples and stuff like that. And you know what, I would be lying if sometimes I said that I didn't do that, you know, when I, you know, and maybe not, it's not as specific as black and white, but you know, maybe you know, just super hypothetical example, like I have a friend and he's African American and I see that he's dating someone who's like Asian, for example.
Mm,
It's not that, for me, sometimes it's a question of like, it's interesting how these cultures came together. You know
mhm.
what I mean? Because culturally, there's a lot of separation that has to do specifically with culture. Um, I feel like a lot of that has to do with the conditioning of seeing everyone separately. You know, I feel like we would be less surprised to see people of different races together if we weren't seen to see that as like odd or, you know, have that be a trend, you know, something that is said. And what's that saying? There's something that goes, you know, the first thought is what you're conditioned to think, and your second thought is who you truly are.
Oh,
So,
whoa! I never heard that before.
really?
Yeah, let me process that. Say again.
So, you know, the first thought, you know, that you have when you are being judgmental is what you are um, basically trained to think, what, you know, society has taught you to think. And then the second thought that you have defines who you truly are. So, you know, for example, you know, let's say, you know, for very basic example, like slut shaming. You know, that girl over there, oh my God, why is she wearing a skirt that short? You know, that's your first thought you have. And then you're like, well, you know, why can't she wear a skirt that short? Why is that even any of my business? Why am I even like, what does they even have to do with me? That there's so much, I feel like confidence that comes in knowing that you can make that conscious correction of yourself every single time and
Yeah.
that you don't have
Yeah.
to be stuck in that loop of always, you know, being as you were taught to be, which is
Yeah.
discriminative no matter
And,
what, you
now,
know.
that's very interesting because when you said that, it reminded me that, say, for example, the news. The television news when I was growing up was typically a white man behind a desk, and there were no female anchors. And then there became female anchors, and there was always a white woman and a white man. Then there was an Asian woman, then a black man, Asian woman, white man. Now, when I watch the news, there are Pakistani people, there are Indian people broadcasting news. And it came to my mind when I thought how different. For example, I watched a news show yesterday, and there were three female anchors. There was the two ladies at the desk were obviously ladies, and then when they went to the field reporter was also a lady. And I was like, well, I've never seen this before, and it's not a big deal, but
Hmm.
I did notice that my particular first run thought was, what do these ladies know about the news? Like, how are they broadcasting the news? Like, they're ladies. Shouldn't they be talking about cooking or something? Or
Hmm.
kids?
Yeah,
I
and
didn't
you
go
know
that
what?
deep with it, but yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you wouldn't be alone in that either. Like I was reading this, I think actually I learned about that saying from a guy who he was getting on a flight and he noticed that there were two dark-skinned African American men who were the pilots. And his first thought was, are they going to be able to get us from point A to point B? And then he was like, they went to, like
Right,
flying school, like they have to have all these certifications to
right.
even like be there. And like how, like, how kind of weird it is that we even think that someone could be incapable of certain things based on such a superficial observation. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and all of those things are based on just that, observations. I mean, yes, black guys can play basketball really well, but
Hmm.
that's only because we know black guys to play basketball. What if we had started the NBA with Asian or Indian or some other race of guys were the first guys that we handed basketballs to, and to this day, we'd be like, oh my God, nobody plays basketball better than Japanese guys. Japanese guys rule the basketball court, period. We don't know because we didn't try it that way, but
Yeah.
we just tried it with American black guys. And really, in America, black guys rule the basketball court. That's
Right.
an American thing. From what I know, again, some sports historian's going to email me or send me a message and be like, by the way, Brent Boyd Hollinsfield is the best basketball player in London, and you shouldn't say. That's not my point. My point is that, on the surface of things, like Tiger Woods was an extraordinary golfer, is an extraordinary golfer. Because he's black and Asian, I don't know. I don't think that really is why he's so good. He just
Right.
happens to be real good, you
Right.
know? And those other things are just what we see on the surface. And that's our own, it's not really discrimination, but I think humans have to categorize everything. I think that's what it comes down to.
It's like
And
people have OCD.
we're not comfortable if we haven't categorized it. So just like, when you were saying, when we first started talking about your career, you were saying, well, I have I think I'm a thick model, or I'm a plus model, a curvy model. Well, you're not. You're a model.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's what you are. You are a model, but you still have a subcategory that you have to give people, because you got to make it a quick definition, really, in their mind, to understand where you fit.
Right. And I feel like if people wouldn't take that so like with such importance, I guess, because being like exactly as you said, like I am a model, and you know what, the thing is that I can do more than what I am currently doing. I don't always have to be doing the lingerie or whatever. I'm very capable of doing other stuff, but people, the specifications, it's kind of like, I like calling them like kinks, like that people have, as far as like not just on a literal level, but that people like have a kink for a specific kind of like car, for example, or
Mhm.
specific kind of like of breed of dog or whatever it is. You know what I mean? That people, they need like all these specifics because specifics sell, they're marketable. And we've spent so much time marketing ourselves in these different ways that it's kind of hard to grow away from that. So like you said, I do have to present myself very specifically aside what I would really like to do, which is just be exactly what I am.
Yeah, and speaking of that, that's a good point. Speaking of that, I was just thinking how I personally don't like to meet a girl that says, "Oh, I love black guys." Okay, well, I don't want any part of that. Like, I'm not here to because you love black guys. It's not my fault. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I'm more than that. And if that's all I am, we really aren't going to go very far,
Right.
because you know.
That that is so, I mean, it's funny, but it's not funny, you know? Like I know exactly what you mean, like, oh, I love me a spicy Latina. Okay, but then as soon as I start acting crazy, you want to be like, what's wrong with you? Like, no,
Right,
you said you had a thing for me, right? You better watch out because here's the thing and all of its accessories.
right.
You know what I mean? So it's the superficiality of statements like that. I completely understand like how like gross like that is. It's like, dude, good for you. Like, is that, you know, exactly what you said is like that. Is that all I am? Like, oh,
And
I'm just
it's a way to make you fit into a convention that, you know, if I had a friend who drove a pickup truck and wore cowboy boots and a cowboy hat, you presume he's a redneck.
right,
And but then when he pulls up with his deep chocolate girlfriend in the passenger side,
right,
your conventions are thrown and you go, whoa, he's into that? She's into
right,
that? Well, those were just fantasies in your mind. Like you were making all that stuff up because, you know, look at Lil Nas X. I mean, he's who he wants to be. He's doing what he wants to
yeah,
do, and
yeah,
there's no definition needed, you know?
right,
And I knew a couple of guys that were promoters in Las Vegas, and they were gay cowboy guys, you know, and that's who they were. They were gay as you could be, but they were buff and they wore cowboy hats and jeans and talked
right,
cowboy talk, but they were gay
yeah,
cowboys, you know. And it's, I think the best thing about this generation that we're going through is that we're going to have to accept diversity whether we like it or not. And I
right.
think that's the best thing that's happened in America since America.
Oh yeah, it's well, it's my favorite thing right now with all this other stuff going on. At least we can celebrate, you know, all being one,
That's
one
right.
together. But yeah.
Right. Hey, you know how we run out of time on the show. So how do we contact you on social media? We want to follow you, share you, like you, stalk you.
So if you want to see me on Instagram, it is at Lorraine Sol Official. If you want to book me, it's that same Lorraine Sol Official at gmail.com. Facebook, Lorraine Sol. You'll find me.
That is what's up. Hey, you guys get out there and find her. Ace Michael Show, Lorraine Soul, talking about it, making it come to light. You know what I say, man? Live the life you love, love the life you live. Thank you guys. That was awesome.
Yes.
Awesome.